here's Australia 4 with no rights coming in on port tack. Kookaburra 3 has the right of way on starboard. Now Australia 4 must tack. Very, very close indeed. Couldn't be no more than, what, 10 feet in it. Now a boat tacking has to give way. There, she can't interfere with the boat on a starboard tack. So Kooka 3 quite justified, I think, in putting out. And there's the red flag you can see fluttering now from the backstay.
Back on board Kookaburra 3.
Everything seems to be calm, Bruce.
This is a real boat race now, this one. Close indeed to the first rounding.
Yep, 2 boat lengths. So Colin did a nice job there. He's hung in there, and he's probably close enough to affect the wind of Kookaburra 3 when they set their spinnakers. Probably looks like, yes, it'll be a jibe set. The spinnaker pole is to leeward of the bow of the boat, which means that they're preparing to jibe the boat right around and then hoist their spinnaker. And that's what's happening. Yes, the spinnaker's going up on the right-hand side of the boat. Now Australia 4 has elected to do a starboard pole. Her spinnaker pole is up on the right-hand side of the boat, 13-second separation here. In fact, they've both done starboard pole sets. Okay, both bear away. So the tactics of Huey Trahan, the tactician on Australia 4, has been, in fact, to match Kookaburra 3. Now, you see the spinnaker on the front boat, Kookaburra 3 collapsing. Australia 4 has her air. What will mean now is that Australia 4 has 2 options. One is she can sail to the so-called weather side of Kookaburra 3, or she could dip down, as the spinnaker of Australia 4, dip down and endeavour to get a safe leeward. Now here we go. She's now dipping down to leeward to
she wants the inside run.
Correct, because remember, viewers, what these boats are endeavouring to do, what they will be doing, regardless of what I say, they'll be going around the leeward mark, and it's who has whose nose in front will be able to get around the mark first. And the foredeck hand is pulling a new Genoa up onto the deck, and he'll be taking it up to the forestay. That's that wire that holds the mast up coming out of the bow. And obviously, because the breeze has freshened, they're going up to a new code. I would guess
what a wonderful shot. The back they come again. They're going to try and take more wind.
Yep. They've just swung across the stern of Kookaburra 3. Whoops, the spinnaker has collapsed a little bit on Australia. Now they'll be endeavouring to roll right around the outside. They figured that because the distance wasn't close enough, the distance was getting too close to the mark, they indeed weren't going to get their nose in, so mark is coming. So Kookaburra 3 has a controlling situation now, but Australia 4, because she was in contact at that first weather mark, is really in on this race, and what we're going to see is that Australia 4 on the left side of the screen will be pulling her sails down conservatively, and she will be sailing very close to the stern of Kookaburra 3 coming into the mark. Then she'll come around, loping around, remember 20 tons of momentum, and then tack at the mark to clear of her air.
Kookaburra can also hold Australia 4 down. She can take Carter down past the mark.
She has to legitimately sail around the mark. She's got to maintain her new course, her new proper course. Okay, Kookaburra 3 going around the bottom mark. She'll have to then squeeze up so that it effectively blocks the wind of Australia 4. Australia 4, Colin Bishel, will be struggling to get his boat up. It's a beautiful rounding. It appears he's tacking his boat. Yes, no. Okay, he's getting weather distance. Okay, he's squeezed up and then he's laid back onto port tack.
The Kiwis would be on port tack if they came about now and would not be able to cross Stars and Stripes. Here they go. Let's see. This is the first great test of this match. The Kiwis have to, they're not going to make it. They'll have to pull under. They have to pull under Stars and Stripes stern here.
They're going under the stern.
Now let's see what tactics Dennis Connor employs. He doesn't like the idea of tacking too close with these Kiwis. He's coming about. And it's on for young and old right now.
This is what Dixon wants. He wants a tacking duel.
Connor's in command here, up to windward. Now the Kiwis will be trying to pitch up, force tack it, force Connor to tack away. Can Connor live there? That's the great question now. Can he hold on? Now look at the Kiwis bearing off the speed, trying to get up to speed. They're tacking. They're the big losers in this one. Nice tack though on the Kiwi, but look at those waves breaking across Stars and Stripes now. Stars and Stripes in big trouble. A jib has burst. Now, this is where the big test of American seamanship comes in. Scotty Vogel, the bowman, in the eyes of the boat now. They're going to lower that jib away, get the rag on board, get it down below, get a new jib up, and set it. This is a great chance for the Kiwis to come back here. Look at the jib coming on board. It drifts right up the luff. Let's try and get an idea of how long it takes them. The seconds are ticking away now. Kiwi Magic, top left-hand part of our screen. She's quite a way back now. Down it comes. This is where seamanship with a capital S really comes in. The great challenge is on now from the Kiwis. Stars and Stripes crippled right now. No jib up. Here's the great challenge from the Kiwis. The opportunity
here comes New Zealand.
The opportunity for the Kiwis to get back in this boat race. Kiwis, blood in their nostrils as they look up the road, look up the water and see Stars and Stripes without a headsail. Now here comes this
full power, the New Zealanders. The Kiwis on board Sunbird are going mad. Stars and Stripes hoists the jib. The new one goes up.
She won't cross. Stars and Stripes have got it. They've got the jib up. They're on port tack and they're still ahead.
They come out to the mark. Now, there's no doubt about it.
Dramatic recovery, Bruce, by the Kiwis. But look how close Dennis Connor is to the mark. Next, the Kiwis have shown themselves very, very fast today. Around comes Connor now. He's laying the mark.
Over on the defender's course, the margin was 50 seconds to Kookaburra 3. 50 seconds.
Tacks on to starboard. Up goes the pole. They'll need a good, smart set here to put distance between themselves and this attacking Kiwi boat.
Now remember that on the last square run, that New Zealand was able to halve the lead by Stars and Stripes. Halve the lead. Now here they are right within touch going out onto the reaching leg. So this is still a very tight boat race.
Still no sign of a spinnaker on board the Kiwi boat. The Kiwis have trouble here with their spinnaker, Bruce. They're in big trouble with that kite. They've only just set it.
Look at this.
Here we go. We've got a Jenica. We've got the new type of spinnaker that was developed by Schnackenberg on Kiwi Magic. And she is rolling up to... look at her go. We're seeing a change in the whole concept of the race here. Kiwi Magic has more boat speed than Dennis Connor. They've been caught with the pounds down a little bit in terms of the development of these Jenicas, and it appears that the Kiwis have been working on it since Australia 4 first showed the world about 2 weeks ago. They've been working on these sails. This is the first time we've seen this Jenica.
And look at that boat can't fly.
Whoa! There goes Stars and Stripes. Now Dennis will be sailing very, very high on this next leg to protect his wind, to make sure that he stays on the weather side of Kiwi Magic. Kiwi Magic has got this Jenica working very, very well, and if they do get into a luffing duel, then the New Zealanders are very, very well placed tactically to be able to sail very high into the breeze. It's going to be very, very interesting what happens.
8 seconds to Stars and Stripes. New Zealand has closed from 14 to 8 seconds.
The spinnaker pole is having a hard time getting up to the corner of the Jenica. You can see this crewman struggling with that, and by definition, the pole must be up to the corner of the spinnaker, and it may be pedantic, but that's part of the rules, Bruce. It has to get up for that sail to be legal, and they're having a hard time actually pushing it up, getting it up, so maybe there's a mechanical problem there. Presumably, that's the reason for the protest from Dennis's boat.
And there goes the spinnaker peel now.
Right, they made the choice. Right, they made the choice of going for a bigger sail. See Dennis moving forward while that spinnaker, get that spinnaker out there, boys. Get it full of air, otherwise you're going to have a hard time getting in this race. The Jenica, the all-white sail, is still impeding it's impeding the set of that new blue and white spinnaker. Got a bit of a twist here. There's some real pressure on these boys. Now, this is the first time that these guys have ever been in this situation. As we say, they want to get back in this boat race. They do not need mechanical fail-ups. It looks like they've dropped the spinnaker now. They also have have their Jenica down, you can just imagine the pandemonium on that boat. You can just imagine Chris Dixon going nuts. He's squeezing the wheel because he can't help himself. If he could, he'd be up on the bow trying to make it all happen. So the crews are desperately trying to sort it out. There's been a twist. They're getting rid of the Jenica at the moment. So this is a disaster for the Kiwis. They were so close and yet so far at this point. So what's happened, it appears, is that the fluid or the tack of the spinnaker became disengaged from the end of the spinnaker pole. And the problem, you know, with the afterguard, these black coats as we talked about before, is that they cannot do anything about it. These guys at the front, the crewmen, are struggling with the sail.
Well, disaster for the Kiwis. There they had Stars and Stripes. They almost had him on the hook. The Jenica had done it, but the tactics employed by Dennis Conner to go up to weather the way he did, to negate the effect of the Jenica when he came back down towards the mark, the Kiwis were forced to try and change their spinnaker. In doing so, look at that.
Now here he comes. He's doing a nice wide sweep. He's about 50 metres from the line, from the leeward mark. The spinnaker is now collapsing and going down, and he'll be doing a wide curve around that leeward pin, that orange mark. They also have their smaller jib up. It'll be most interesting to see whether in fact they're competitive with this smaller jib. That's the front sail on these boats. Remembering that Dennis's favourite jib for these conditions is in a couple of 3 or 4 pieces down below. Not doing much good for the San Diego boat right now. You can see this side, this Genoa, the major sail in the screen, the one that's not flapping, is larger than the sail on Stars and Stripes. And this may give the New Zealanders the advantage they need to get back in this boat race.
This is a very courageous effort by the Kiwis in Dennis Conner's most favourite breeze. Here they are, just seconds away from the Kiwis and taking their breeze and just moving right in on top of them. It's a tactical race here because they're just about to come to the bottom mark and to see which boat can actually get on the inside position. Here we are taking the breeze off Dennis Conner right now.
Maybe he's a little on you right now.
What a brilliant job Chris Dixon's done, John Bertrand.
Oh yes, this is a great yacht race between two very, very fine crews and fine skippers and fine yachts in extremely difficult conditions, and these boats are being raced brilliantly together. At the moment we've got Chris Dixon, still not quite close enough, but they've got about 100 metres to go. It's still beyond the 2 boat length circle. And it's a matter of whether Chris can get his nose inside the stern of Stars and Stripes 87 to get an effective overlap. He's not going to be able to do that, so what he's electing to do here is effectively to turn his boat in so that he gets a nice course around the bottom mark on the stern, following very, very closely astern of Stars and Stripes, and to make a boat race out of this on this last beat to windward, Bruce.
Oh, this is fabulous. That's the scene on board Sunbird. All the New Zealanders, they are very excited, as we are too, as we watch this dramatic last leg. Stars and Stripes goes round, start the clock. 2 seconds, 3. There's only going to be about 6 seconds in it. 5, 6, and that's about it. Now, attacking Jewel for the line.
Sure is. Now, what we'll see here is Kiwi Magic tacking over to clear air. She'll then be bouncing away on starboard tack. They must get their sails in hard. They've lost.
They must have hit the buoy.
They must have hit the buoy. They're going around the mark again.
Well, that's effectively it.
Now, quite obviously, on this boat now, these guys are just devastated.
Okay, well, let's just have a look back at that rounding by KZ7.
Okay, she basically just must have grazed the mark. Again, Bruce, what it shows is the experience factor coming through. These men desperately wanted to get their boat very, very close to the mark so that they didn't throw any so-called weathered position away to Dennis and Stars and Stripes. In doing so, they just took a little bit too much, and by golly, have they paid the price.
And here it comes. Watch for the puff of smoke now from the race boat. Bang, there it is. They won it. Dennis and Stars and Stripes crew go mad, congratulating each other. Plenty of applause now on Sunbird for the vanquished KZ7.
she goes.
Nice tribute from the Americans as their VIP boat Carmack gives the old cock-a-doodle-doo sound.
For 132 years, it was the property of the New York Yacht Club, the America's Cup, the most prized trophy in sports. From around the world, men came with their millions, their boats and their dreams. The dream that they would be the one to win the cup. Then, in 1983, it finally happened. Alan Bond's Australia 2, the flying lady with the wing keel, clinched it in one of sport's most unforgettable moments. And today, after 5 months of fierce and furious racing off Fremantle, it begins again, the chase for the cup. This is our defender, Australia's golden girl, the glorious Kookaburra 3. And this is the enemy, the challenger, big bad Dennis Conner, out to win that cup back. Now, all the years of preparation, all that blood, sweat and tears, all that bluff and bluster, and all those millions of dollars that have been spent have come down to this. January 1987, Gage Roads off Fremantle. The final shootout when, for the first time in history, Australia defends the America's Cup.
It all began in 1851 when British industrialists invited their American cousins to a boat race around the Isle of Wight. It was called the Race of All Nations. 18 entries, 17 of them British, and one dramatically different. When the yacht America finished 18 minutes ahead of any rival, Daniel Webster proclaimed to the Massachusetts House of Representatives, "America is first, there is no second." And so began the legend of the Holy Grail of yachting. Its most recent residence inside those hallowed halls on 44th Street in Manhattan, known as the New York Yacht Club, where it was perched on a pedestal. It wasn't always that way. Early on, the cup was displayed at social functions and revered by the yachting fraternity, but soon they suggested melting the cup down into metals. The American Civil War had to run its course before the first challenge. Competition was between complex two-masted schooners, often differing dramatically in size. And then the era of the sloops, when more sail area was used than at any other time. By the turn of the century, sailing for the America's Cup had become an aristocratic sport, with men like J. Pierpont Morgan competing, and Cornelius Vanderbilt, and English grocer turned sea baron Sir Thomas Lipton. He was the best loser in the history of the Cup, challenging 5 times over 31 years, but winning only 2 races in all that time. His yachts were named Shamrock. In 1920, Lipton's Shamrock 4 actually won the first 2 races against Resolute, but the American yacht rallied to win the next 3 and the series. Lipton's last challenge was in 1930 with Shamrock 5. She met the technologically superior Enterprise, and Sir Thomas seemed to have lost without even racing. The 1930s ushered in a new era with Harold Vanderbilt's defense at the helm of Rainbow, Vanderbilt, Newport, and the J-boats. The J-boats were 130 feet long, with masts 15 stories high. The J's were described as larger than life. Just to see them hoist sails was an event. They were bigger sailing ships to be seen, with masts almost as tall, but none with Marconi rigs, which seemed like narrow slivers of white cloth, piercing the sky and taking wing. Newport, Vanderbilt, and the Jays, a combination of glamour, style, and wealth. 1958 marked the 12-meter era, and Jacques Sturrock was the Aussies bravely battling back to square the series 3 races off. And then on the last leg of the last race, Australia 2 gamely holds off a series of desperate tacks by Dennis Conner and Liberty. And Australia 2 ends the longest winning streak in the history of sports. So for Australia 2 designer Ben Lexon and Alan Bond's First Lieutenant Warren Jones and the entire Aussie crew, a place in yachting history. Alan Bond had spent 9 years of his life and $13 million doing what no one had been able to do before. For 132 years, the Cup's home was America. Now it was going 12,000 miles away to a new country, oceans and continents away. The America's Cup had come down under to Perth.
seconds to go.
This is the situation very dangerously reminiscent of the last race in the Defender Series, where young Colin Vischer was caught in between the Cooker 3 and the committee boat and was forced to jibe around. That's not going to happen today, though. Cooker 3 just backing a jib and tacking away now. Off to port, tack. Dennis Conner looks as if he's going to win this start very comfortably. He's on starboard tack, going for the line now.
Okay, so what we have here is a split. We have the Kookaburra. It appears that she's going to jibe around. It doesn't matter whether she can jibe in 50 seconds and get speed. No, she's going to tack. And we have Dennis Conner, who'll probably be just sailing straight down the line, maximum speed at this point. Now, with 39 seconds to go, it's a matter of whether the Australian boat can get around with enough speed on and get this boat moving at maximum horsepower. We have the American boat gunning down towards the leeward end, the bottom end of the screen, towards the America's Cup buoy, and effectively they'll be setting up for a time start. Remember, there's 20 tons of lead here, so what's going through the Australian skipper's mind at this point, at 18 seconds to go, is he wants to hit that imaginary line connecting the leeward end, there it is, right in the foreground there, to the committee boat, which is a blue boat on the left-hand side of the screen coming in. At 8 seconds to go, it appears that he's got a good speed on. We'll be seeing the American boat come through at the bottom of the screen. There she goes.
Conner hardens up for it now. Both boats going 7.5, 7.8 knots. They're racing now. The red cheer goes up from the spectators on board Sunbird as we watch the first match of this historic Australian defence of the America's Cup. The best of 7 series is underway.
Now, the whole key at this point is which end of the start line was favoured. The top end of the screen, the committee boat, if it's closer to the weather mark, the next mark that they're going to, then in fact Kookaburra has won. If indeed the leeward end of the line is closer to the weather mark, then in fact Stars and Stripes has won. It feels to me, just from looking at it, that the Aussie boat has got a slight advantage at this point, and of course they have got starboard side, which means that Stars and Stripes needs to move one clear boat length forward before she can tack and clear the bow of the Australian boat and still be within the rules.
The man with the green eye shade is Peter Gilmore, the fellow who did such a good job at the start there, looking at our camera now with that zinc cream on his nose. He's trimming the main sheet. Right behind him, standing at the helm, is the unmistakable bear-like figure of Ian Murray. And now Dennis Conner comes across. Now Dennis is on port tack. He's got no rights here. Kookaburra 3 is on starboard. It's a very, very bold move by Dennis Conner. If he can cross Kookaburra 3, he's in front at this point.
In terms of time over the line, John Bertrand, they were dead set even.
Conner's in front right now. Dennis Conner is in the lead at this moment. Cooker's going to be forced to tack away. She's going around now. A very dramatic early development in this race. Dennis Conner does appear to have snatched a handy early lead in the first few minutes of the race. Look how calm the American guys are, sitting down there. There's Conner with those dark glasses way aft. The only man at the weather rail. The man looking up at the sail there is Adam Ostenfeld, the starboard trimmer.
Let's listen to some of the comments on the boat now.
Going like a 10 faster, just like it should be. I like it. Yeah, nicely, real good right now. Slightly close to the top, but not ridiculous. Yeah, you continue to get a little bit more bearing. No loss of height so far. Good.
Okay, let's switch over from Stars and Stripes and go on board at Kookaburra 3. There's Ian Murray. Doesn't show any look of great concern there, John Bertrand.
Well, the man's exterior is quite different to what's going through his brain right now. But of course, he's got to be remaining cool, and there's a long way to go. There's 4 hours of racing to go here. At this point, the Australians are probably about 1/2 of a boat length behind. In fact, it certainly looks more from that angle.
Welcome back onto Sunbird, our magnificent passenger catamaran. A beautiful vantage point for us to view the race with the crew on Stars and Stripes. Still, John Bertrand trying to clear what obviously is weed on the rudder.
Yes, what Dennis would be feeling now is vibration, or it looks like they probably have even given up or have got the weed off the rudder. But you would feel it through the rudder. Dennis would feel a whole set of vibrations as the turbulence is set up with the weed, and that can really slow the boats down. There's quite a lot of kelp on the surface in these gauge roads in certain times of the week, and they may have just hooked up something then.
Okay, well, let's let's find out how Dennis Conner feels about the start, about winning the start. Here he is.
Well, it's a lot better to be ahead than behind. We have seen some leads change on the first windward leg. I think the most important is to be ahead at the first leeward mark. My guess is that the percentages don't change much after the rounding of the first leeward mark, because if you're ahead right there, now you're in phase. Well, the guy has to come right around that leeward mark right there. You're in phase. He tacks, you tack on him. He can either tack back, and you can drive him back very quickly, and all of a sudden now you punish him quite a bit, and you have that whole weather leg and make him pay the price. So it's not a disaster to be behind at the start. But it's not the best place to be.
Well, Bruce, you know, they might not be worrying about the start anymore. That was a long time ago. The wind has shifted and gotten lighter, and now both boats are changing sails. Stars and Stripes just went through his tail change, and Kookaburra, I can see, is also changing sails. Now, these sails range from the lightest sail, which is a number 1, which they've put up now. It's a very full, rounded sail. It gives you a lot of speed in these kind of light airs, and it also helps you accelerate when the winds are very light. But potentially you don't sail very close to the wind. You can see Kookaburra at the top of the screen. Notice the jib is going up underneath the other jib. There it is. So both boats changing jibs to match the light air. It's interesting, just before the start during that postponement, that Kookaburra also changed her mainsail. She had a lighter air mainsail, went to a medium air sail, and now she's stuck with a sail that might be a little too heavy for these conditions.
I'd rather like the way you'd put your registration sticker on the windshield of your car. And these cover the entire underbody surface of the American boat, and they do aid her speed through the water in very light airs.
Well, they'll have a very small spinnaker up today. You have large spinnakers for heavy air and very small spinnakers for light air. They vary from 51 feet wide all the way down as small as 39 feet. And I think we'll see one about 40 to 39 feet today.
Will it have pockets on it?
I don't think it will. I think when you're sailing the harbor, you won't see pockets or the dolly sail or the wedding cake sail that they've called it. Oh, up goes the spinnaker.
That's a standard spinnaker.
Yeah, it'll be a little one, half-ounce.
In fact, it's American 2 spinnaker. It's one of the American 2 spinnaker, the New York Yacht Club contender spinnakers. And look at the extent of the breeze, the swing in this breeze, Gary. It's almost a shy run there. Instead of this being square, Stars and Stripes have their pole very close to the forestay. You can hear the Americans on board our boat going crazy. There's no doubt about which boat they're supporting. Now Kookaburra 3 comes up to the mark and gets ready to go about. Donnie McCracken, the bowman, in the eyes of the boat now, doing what his opposite number, Scotty Vogel, did just a little while ago. Already coming up to 1 minute between these boats.
No cause for concern, though. It's very early in the race. It's a very light air. Ian Murray, Peter Gilmore, Ian Burns, these guys have sailed enough to know that the wind is going to shift back and forth. So I would say this race is far from over. Frankly, I think the time limit might be the bigger problem as we work down the course. But right now, Stars and Stripes. There goes the spinnaker, slowly going up there. Don McCracken on the bow.
Now down comes the jib. Kookaburra 3 sets off in pursuit of the American Challenger.
Surging up to the line now. Stars and Stripes out in front, as it has been all day. Although the start says dead heat, Dennis Conner very, very substantially won that start by going to the left-hand side, the America's Cup boys side of the line. A minute 15 at the first mark, a minute 20, back to 41 seconds on the second work to windward, but then out again to a minute 14 by the wing mark, a minute 15, a minute 17, and then that 43 seconds margin there on the seventh leg, the last square run, to be 2 minutes in front. And they're coming up to the line now.
Conner, you know, has always been confident, but not too confident, not confident enough to just come out and make a bold prediction. But one man who did make a prediction, Bruce, is Chris Dixon. And no one was in a better position than Dixon to make an evaluation of the two boats, because he's not only sailed against Stars and Stripes, but also trialled against Kookaburra 3.
Okay, here we go. Stars and Stripes coming up to the line. The crowd goes wild on Sunbird. Stars and Stripes coming up to take the gun to take a 1-0 lead in the final of the America's Cup. Coming up now, wait for the puff of smoke. Wait for
Connor, Tommy Witt and Peter Eisler on the back of the boat. You can see the grinders and the forward heads congratulating each other. It's a great feeling of contentment on the boat now, and these boys from San Diego must feel very, very content right now.
Well, quite rightly, a very satisfied crew, 11 happy men on board Stars and Stripes. Dennis Connor, even now, allows himself a smile and a wave. And well, they might be pleased, as Kookaburra 3 still has not reached the line. She, in fact, will have to tack over onto starboard to cross the line. There she is, coming into picture now. She's going up on port tack as Stars and Stripes comes out of picture. Across comes Kookaburra 3. Well, they would have learned an awful lot today about what this America's Cup is all about, what they are in fact up against if they are going to defend the Cup, as I'm sure everybody on board that boat and everybody watching this telecast is determined they will.
This last leg to the finishing line, Bruce, is very, very painful for these very proud men. And they're probably about 15 seconds from the line now. It would appear that, yes, they have gained on this last beat to windward, which would have to be very heartening for the boys on the Kookaburra Syndicate and heartening for this country.
They shoot up into the wind now. Cook is very close to finishing. It's going to be a minute 40 seconds. There's the margin, the official time.
That's the unofficial time, a minute 40. That's good though, John Bedford. It's a 20-second gain on the last beat.
It sure is. This will give them heart when they go and debrief and figure out how they can do it better tomorrow and how they can come back and level the score. Great shot of Dennis Connor, very happy man, and so he should be. There he goes. Both boats tacking over. The American on the right-hand side of the screen, and the Kookaburra boys representing Australia, trying to press this race, speed the thing up, and get the maneuverability and the agile nature of the Kookaburra team to just rev this thing together. They know that they're very confident in this type of pre-start, and Gilmore is tending to rev the race up and get stuck into it. Here we go, 58 seconds to go. This is pretty interesting stuff, Bruce.
Actually, Dennis Connor, if he had a bit of speed now, is a classic position to hold the Kookaburras over the line. But unfortunately for Dennis, he stopped the speed of his boat. He has no manoeuvrability.
Okay, 43 seconds to go. It looks like they're both going to jibe out. It looks like we've got Dennis going down, ready to line up on K3. K3 will be jibing onto starboard tack on right of way. So 28 seconds to go. It's going to a matter of who positions the boat best at the line and how close they are relative to the line. I would say that Dennis is going to be on the leeward end of the line, leeward side relative to K3. 17 seconds to go. It's a time on distance start. 13 seconds to go, and they're about 20 meters back from the line at this point.
The interesting thing is, John, is if they had just gone with their lame duck start, they would have ended up in the same position.
Exactly, but we maybe revved up the corpuscles here. Here we go, nice start.
Kookaburra start.
Yeah, very, very nice. Both boats of equal speed. Kookaburra got their sails in. Very nice start to the Australians right now.
Now we see a speedboat race. Who has the fastest yacht?
At this point, if indeed the Americans are faster, they'll be able to go forward and squeak into, in other words, suck into the Aussies. So it'll be a test of boat speed. It's a test of technology here. There's an official difference on the start line of 3 seconds, but the more important thing is that Kookaburra is far enough to weather, if indeed they have enough boat speed, to lock the Americans out, so that when they eventually have to tack, they'll be able to lead them into the first mark of this leg number 1.
The American yacht looks like it's sporting a smaller headsail than Kookaburra for this strong breeze.
Good start for the Australians right now.
It's on board Stars and Stripes.
Now what Dennis has been very good at, and we've noticed is his ability to scallop the boat, to go high and then low and use the waves to his advantage.
That's right, yep.
And we're going to see quite a lot of this corkscrewing going on, and of course Ian Murray and his boys will need to be really tuned into this.
Okay, for our Melbourne viewers, we're on board Kookaburra 3. It's Ian Murray standing up with the zinc on his lips. That's Peter Gilmore in the green peak cap and this is a drag race.
Benny, you made the comment before, and I totally concur with it. It looked like when they came off the start yesterday, the Australian boys, they may have been a little bit uptight, and I remember thinking about how important it is to come off the start from Australia 2 and all the previous America's Cups. It's so hard, so much pressure on these guys to be as loose as a goose and to be really working their boats, but they got really hammered yesterday. I think today they're really up for it.
Yeah, I think that's right, John. Yesterday, the Americans led them in every manoeuvre. They changed their jib first, they dropped their spinnaker first when the wind changed, and our boys seemed to be followers rather than leaders, and I think it was stage fright, and I think it's over now. It looks to me like to get over the stage fright, they've all dressed up as black and white minstrels.
Well, we certainly hope they can sing the tune today. They're down one race.
See the protest flag on the stern? Kookaburra 3. This race will not be over necessarily when the gun finishes this afternoon. It's going to go into the courtroom tonight.
Yeah, midnight tonight they'll know who won the race.
If indeed Dennis tried to tack, it would appear that she will not be able to clear the bow of Kookaburra 3. Yep, there she is.
Without a wind shift, Dennis Connor has got the work ahead of him because there's such a gap between the boats sideways that I don't think he can gain the 3 boats lengths required to cross ahead of Kookaburra unless he goes into a substantial header.
There's a great shot down below on Kookaburra, and it probably isn't quite 5 boat lengths, but certainly Stars and Stripes is in front.
And they cross. There you can see the margin between the 2 boats, about 2.5 boat lengths, as Connor comes across to slap some dirty wind into Kookaburra's sails.
Now, there's no way that Kookaburra will be able to live there and not lose distance, so she'll have to tack, and well, it's going to be tough. She's going to really pay the price there. Yes, they are. They're very close to the mark, and Dennis has done it such that all the dirty air, all the worst air that he can generate, is spilling now into the sails of Kookaburra 3, and the fact that they're hanging in there on K3 means that they're very much on the ley line there, and Dennis is holding his boat up to take maximum advantage of his boat being in the lead. So this is the price that the Aussies, of course, are paying, being behind. So there we have K3 on the left-hand side, really hurting badly, and the American boat doing everything he can to stay up and spill all this bad air onto the Aussies. He's just got to hang in there at this point.
If the K3 can hang there, it's still a lot better than doing the 2 tacks, John.
That's right. You lose, what, 20, 30 feet every time you tack?
And like close to the buoy like that, they wouldn't be going very fast after the second tack. They'd have to go around the mark going slow.
That's right. So it's just got to hang in there and really position their boat so that they are able to attack on this first square run. There we go. We've got the mark on the right-hand side. That's why they've hung in there. And it's a nice tight margin, Benny. We're going to have a boat race on our hands.
That's right. They're only about 14 seconds behind, I'd say.
At this point, now that Stars and Stripes has eased its sails, Ian Murray will have all the clear air of this ocean.
They're going to jibe at the mark. He has to protect his inside running down the run.
And the same with Kookaburra 3, I'm sure. We're peeling the boat around. Nice set by the Americans. And there goes the Australians. Spinnaker going up on the right-hand side. The boom will be coming across. 4 seconds differential between the boats. Very close boat race. Whoops.
Okay. Across on Kookaburra yet, but it's about to.
Yeah, Spinnaker's sitting nicely.
And there's a shot looking down on the bow of Stars and Stripes. 12 seconds in front. She was around the first mark, and look how close Kookaburra 3 is.
Kookaburra 3 in the top left-hand corner of the screen. They've got 2 options here. One is to position their boat further to the right of looking at the screen of Stars and Stripes so that they can interfere. There's probably the actual wind turbulence coming off the spinnaker would be missing the left-hand side of Dennis's sail. So they'll also be pumping their boat very hard, pulling in the spinnaker and the mainsail in unison when their bow's about to surge down the front of a wave. See the wave coming up under the stern? There they go.
Forgetting that start, and that situation will be resolved by the jury later. Stars and Stripes look to me to be about 2 boat lengths faster on that windward leg, and she also got a little shift. And going downwind, I'm kind of surprised that Stars and Stripes looks like they've gained at least a boat length, 2 boat lengths since that mark. They're having a little trouble, though, pulling that spinnaker down. They've let the halyard go, and they're having trouble there getting that shoot in.
Well, there's a quick look at Sail Vision. 19 knots the wind now. Stars and Stripes, according to Sail Vision, lead by 22 seconds. We'll check that against the official clock as they come around the mark.
The wind hasn't come up any more than we saw, Bruce. It was up to 22 to 23 knots, I thought, anyway. And I don't think there's any more breeze than we have. Here comes Stars and Stripes. Seas are plenty big, though.
Well, I hope their Stars and Stripes would sail right through that spinnaker, being a patriotic Australian, but fortunately for Dennis, they didn't. And here's we'll get the margin in a minute, and I agree. I think that the Kookaburra did lose a little bit there.
Yet again, Gary, a pretty conservative rounding by Stars and Stripes.
Very conservative, although I notice a line off the port side of Stars and Stripes dragging in the water, so they'll have to get that up. I wonder if they have any kelp on the rudder again today. That was beautiful when Peter Rice was trying to fish the seaweed off yesterday.
I'm not sure if that wasn't a bit of an act for the spectators. I noticed once one of the Kookaburra boys was looking over the side of his rudder too, so it was having an effect on them.
Well, it looks like the margin is at least doubled. At least doubled.
When you come round on the wind like this after a hectic run like that, Gary, it's very unusual boat that doesn't have a lot of lines hanging over the side for a while.
That's right. It kind of lets you know that you're going fast. You need a little blood in the bilge and spit in the bilge, and you know that it's been a rough race, and they'll have some of that going back upwind. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if Murray tries a tacking duel today, which everybody thinks that Kookaburra may be better accelerating coming out of the tacks, or will straight line, and pretty much the first leg was really a straight line contest.
Early on in the summer, I told Dennis I didn't think he'd do any good because his boat didn't look much chop. And side on...
Great judgment.
Well, I know, I have wonderful judgment. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, it looks like a gondola. It's all bent, like a big blue banana. And as the season moved on, we found out the Kookaburra was designed by John Swarbrick and Ian Murray, like a little consortium of designers. And still the designers of the blue, smoke blue rocket, as we'll call it shortly, are unknown. And I guess I'll have to apologise to John Marshall, who claims he helped design it, the two yacht designers, Britton Chance and Nelson and Merrick, and Dennis Connor's mother, and perhaps his dog, and I don't know, maybe one of the bus drivers around Fremantle. There's so many people being involved in the design of this boat that it's quite good. Maybe the days of the single designer like myself are numbered, and I'll have to join a group.
Well, what about this big banana bows you got? French Kiss had that as well, and we see it on Stars and Stripes. Is that because of the wave conditions and water conditions here off Fremantle?
Well, it's partly for the wave conditions, Bruce, but one of the measurements on the boat is the distance from the jib cutting the deck line to the mast. And if you raise the bow up, that distance goes vertical, and you just get an extra little bit of sail area further back in the sail because the boat's lower there.
Right. Well, Stars and Stripes is round, and Kooka 3 has still got a fair way to go to come up to the mark. So this margin is going to be stretched from the 29 seconds it was at the leeward mark.
Yeah, the Kooka still has to do a tack yet, which always costs you 50 or so feet. You can hear the Americans cheering by us. We have to speak very softly here. We're amongst foreigners. The Kookas are probably a minute behind now. But anyhow, down these two reaches, we'll see they'll crack a few waves and get back into this fight.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. Kooka 3. She'll take a wide sweep around the mark. Coming up to the minute margin now. It won't be much more than the minute. Round they come. There's the minute up now.
You'll see their spinnaker pole going up, and Donnie McCracken clipping the spinnaker on, and he'll run forward and hold it down as they hoist it to get as much up without filling prematurely, because if the spinnaker fills prematurely, then the poor guys pull it up at the mast there. They've got to put it on a winch and wind it up. Yeah, they're a bit slow there because they had to do their tack so close to the mark. I'll tell you a little story about Donnie McCracken, the bow man on the boat. He's the guy running forward now. He tried out for us in 1983 for Australia 2, and he failed to make the grade, not because he wasn't good, he was very good, but there was an incident where he pulled the spinnaker down the hatch and a rope loop went off the jib sheet, went round his neck, and he didn't know it in the big kerfuffle of the spinnaker. And then when the boat went on the wind, the grinders ground the winch on, and this rope was in a loop round his neck, and it dragged him up against the hatch, and it's only that somebody noticed him there that they let the sheet off, that they wouldn't have chopped his head right off. And even to this day, Donnie wears a scar around his neck, a little bit like Clint Eastwood in that movie where they hung him. So these are tough boys on these boats, believe you me. There's the Jenica flying, you know, as well as possible, and in this strong wind that'll have a heap of horsepower. So this boat will be really lifted along this reach. It'll be interesting when we get the camera onto Dennis's boat to see if he has one. No, he has a Spinnaker.
That was a pretty slow set and retrieve of the Genoa on that, around that mark by Kookaburra 3.
The Genoa's still in the water, Bruce, and that's not a really good thing. It doesn't slow the boat up as much as it looks untidy unless it fills with water. If it fills with water, of course, it's a disaster.
The people that turn the winches are called grinders. These men take great strength to be able to do this job. And it takes a lot of strength and finesse to trim in the sails. Now, there is one person on the boat that's called a tactician, and it's a tactician's job to keep his eyes outside the boat. Based on what the competition and the wind is doing, he makes recommendations to the skipper. In other words, he gets to tell the skipper what to do. And when I sailed with Ted Turner, not many people had that opportunity. And that information is then passed forward to the crew. Now, most of the job of a tactician is an art form. You get to watch the wind, the waves, the current, and you do have one physical job, and that's turning the running backstay winch to help shape the sails and bend the mast and keep it in the boat. That takes some strength. But you are aided by technology. Let me show you what I mean. Now, with the technology on a 12-meter, some things are complex and other pieces of equipment are simple. Perhaps the most simple is a pair of binoculars, so I get the other boat closer to me and I can tell easier what's going on. I like to use a grease pencil. I keep track of what's going on by writing numbers down on a deck. After a while, it gets to be a real mess back here. Then I have a tape recorder. If I happen to get into a protest, I use the tape recorder for information and evidence. And then, perhaps the most important thing, a hand-bearing compass. Now, what I do here is I take a bearing of the other boat. Then I wait a minute. Then I go back and take the bearing again, and this will tell me if I'm gaining distance ahead, if I'm losing distance, or we're getting closer or further apart. Let me show you some other things. Perhaps the biggest advance in technology on 12 meters is the computer system and the instruments. Now here we have these little microchips that fit right into these little sockets here, and they give you a variety of information. This is really important for the tactician because it gives you a reference of what you're doing. For example, it tells you the wind direction that the wind is blowing right to the degree. It tells you the course that you're steering or the heading. It tells you the wind speed true, exactly what the wind is to a tenth of a knot. It tells you the opposite tack that you would steer on if you go about. It gives you the wind angle. All these things are important references to help you sail better, and the tactician uses these tools to his advantage.
Stars and Stripes approaching the finishing line. They are on the lay line. In other words, they will not have to tack to make the line. They'll probably just shoot the mark. And there's a shot on board the American piece of machinery. Let's take a listen on what's happening.
John! Yeah, still John Barnett will leave the tape and take over eventually, probably. Hey, John? Hey, you said nothing. Hey, we said it. Actually, I was counting when we completed our job. Yeah, I didn't start counting until a bit.
They're pretty laid back, John.
And rather confident, you might say, as they're approaching the finishing line. Where the committee boat, where the starboard or the right-hand side of the line is just coming up on the screen there. And they will be crossing the imaginary finishing line between the buoy and that boat with the large mast. There we go.
Wait
Stars
for the
and
gun.
Stripes. Race number 2, first to the Americans. The score now reads America, Stars and Stripes, 2 races. Australia put the bar 3-0. However, there's still a long way to go, and of course that comes together again, Bruce, in the practice room tonight. It'll be most interesting. But good luck and congratulations to Dennis. They've done a very, very fine job today. Tommy Whitten, you can see the relief and the excitement on the faces of the Stars and Stripes guys. They've done a very, very excellent job and very workmanlike.
Kookaburra 3 coming up to the line now. She was also on the lay line. We'll just see what the margin is. She's still got about 100 meters to go. Up she comes now. 50 seconds. She certainly has come back just a touch on this final leg, but that could have been the conservative safe sailing of Dennis Conner in Stars and Stripes. It's a minute.
Starting to shoot the breeze, goes straight into the wind at this point.
And there she is, over the lines, absolutely stopped dead on the line.
And Peter Gilmore is trying to just press and push and hope at this point. Now, Peter's option, of course, will be to split off at about 30 seconds to go or 40 seconds to go and start on port tack. And in fact, that appears to be what's happening. No, they're hanging on. No, yes, that's right. He's tacked across onto port tack, and he'll be now gunning, in my opinion, straight to the line. And Dennis will be gunning to the America's Cup buoy end, which is down in the left-hand bottom corner.
30 seconds.
So now it's a time on distance, and we remember we've got 20 tons of lead underneath these boats, and the whole key is to get these boats really wound up to maximum speed, get up to 7.5, 8 knots, maybe 8.5 knots when the gun goes and the bows are right on the line. That's the real art and finesse right now. So we're seeing a split. We're seeing the Kookaburra team having the right side of the course, and if Bruce Stannard up on the blimp is right, it could be a very, very good tactical advantage for the Australians. 5 seconds to go. Both boats will not be over the line too early, and they both will have maximum speed on. Now the real test on who has really won this start is when the boat comes across and whoever crosses whom. What do you think, Benny? Who do you think's the
I think in the last few minutes the buoy end became favoured. The line looks a little bit crooked. It's not a lot, but it would be 2 or 3 boat lengths in it. And because one boat started one end and one the other, one boat will have a 3 boat length advantage over the other, and it's probably the blue boat.
That's right. That's what we're referring to it as all day today, the blue boat.
On Kookaburra, they're using a medium air mainsail, light medium. It's a code 2, and it was interesting to see that, whoops, we have a man up the mast.
Already?
Already. Looks like a zipper's undone. Oh, God. This damn zipper technology is really sending everyone nuts. Yes, what's happened is that the zipper's come undone, and that allows extra material to be fed into the belly of the mainsail. Now, what they're endeavouring to do is engage the new zipper. They have a couple of spares that are already sewn into the sail up high, and he will be endeavouring to pull this sail together while the sail is really strapped in. How difficult is that, Benny?
Pretty difficult, John. You know what it's like yourself when your wife puts too much clothes in your bag and then tells you to zip it up. There's no way you can do it. And a wife always seems to be doing that. I mean, this is a really dramatic. The worst thing is not so much the man up the mast or the sail being slightly wrong. I don't think that would slow the boat up anything, but it's the psychological problems of the distractions of the man up the mast and the panic feeling of that is doing most of the damage.
Well, the blue boat's gone over onto port tack. Kookaburra 3 has come on to starboard as we go up into the Swan Premium Airship with Bruce Stannard.
Well, this is the most dramatic moment when we see who is in front here. It's very difficult to call right now. Both boats look as if they're steaming on a collision course. Kookaburra 3 is, of course, on starboard tack and has right away. Dennis Conner's on port and may just have to duck underneath the Cooker stern here. That's the way I read it at the moment. I don't think he's going to be able to cross him. It looks to me as if the Australian boat will cross ahead safely on starboard tack. It's going to be very, very close. When they come together, there'll be just a smidgen in it. But from what I see here, it looks as if Australia, Kookaburra 3, is in the lead right now. Let's just watch them come together. These 2 great 12 metres. It'll be a nice way to begin this race if Cooker 3 has been able to capitalise on this right-hand shift here. Yes, I'd definitely say Cooker 3 is going to be able to cross him comfortably. By comfortably, I mean by a few inches. Dennis is squeezing up there, but he's not going to make it. Kookaburra 3 is in the lead here. He'll go across safely on starboard. And, of course, he'll have to be able to do something to... Connor's really pushing his luck here. Maybe what is he going to do? Tack underneath him, I wonder, or just go duck underneath his stern. Cooker 3 crossing ahead of Stars and Stripes for the first time, I might say, in this America's Cup Series. Now he tries to tack right on top of Dennis. There's only a few feet between them. Connor tacks onto starboard. Very, very little in it there. It must have been about 18 inches, perhaps 2 feet at the most. Connor now on starboard tack. Well, they'll be doing that zigzagging up this course, and it comes down to a question now of boat speed. race on his hands today, because this is Kookaburra weather. And as I look up the course, I see the breeze building. We're seeing more and more white caps. It's building to about 13, 14 knots now.
Thanks very much, Bruce Stannard. We still see Donnie McCracken is up the mast of Kookaburra 3, even though it hasn't affected their speed greatly, obviously. But he's still up there with the zipper.
Well, it would be affecting their speed. The fact is they've got a brilliant start, and they obviously had the right hand and the favoured end, more importantly, of the line. And the fact that the zipper is blown means that the sail is too full for the conditions. And what they're endeavouring to do is get that zipper wound up again to flatten the sectional shapes of the sails. You can see that by the definition of those black stripes on the mainsail and also the jib. It's the mainsail we're talking about here. And what Ian Murray has to do, and Peter Gilmore and Derek Clark in the back of the boat, is to forget about that man up in the mast.
Going to be very interesting again, John Bertrand.
Yes, looks a little closer than last time. This, again, will be a time of reckoning. It will depend on the relative boat speed of Kookaburra and also whether the breeze has gone to the right or not. It would appear that Stars and Stripes is further progressed than she was on the first time they encountered.
Be interesting to see if Kookaburra, if he does cross Stars and Stripes, he can slam dunk him again, but it's going to be much. I don't think he can. I think maybe Stars and Stripes may tack for a lee bow position.
She's got two options, one to tack or to pull under the stern of Kookaburra.
Here she goes.
And she's not pulling under the stern, she will be tacking for a safe leeward position. Now this will be a real test on the refinement of the tacking on the American boat and the relative speed of the Australian boat. If she can get her bow up to the bow of Stars and Stripes, then she'll be able to hold her out to the ley line. Whoops, you just hit a bad wave there. Okay, at this situation, she would not be able to hang in there. She will be in a safe leeward position, and you will get a certain curvature of the wind coming off the American sails on the right-hand side of the screen, and it will be affecting Kookaburra. So I would think that they could only hang in there for possibly 30 seconds at most, and then they'll have to peel off back onto port tack.
So it's pretty line ball at this stage, John.
It certainly is. Very, very close boat racing.
The interesting, if you get race cam on board Dennis's boat again, you'll see them trimming to squeeze their boat. They'll trim on, and now they're winding the mainstay to squeeze up. The tailor's checking the trim of his jib. They're winding the jib on. They're going to squeeze the boat now, try and get up closer to Kookaburra and do what John said before, make the upwash from their sails affect Kookaburra.
You can see Dennis now sailing a little higher. That's probably 5-7 degrees higher. He's scooping up. His sails will be pulled on hard. You can see the Australian boat on the left screen trying to reach over him. And I suspect that we probably...
There goes the tack.
There he goes.
I would say there that gain that Kookaburra got that time, John, was probably from the slight wind shift. And it seems to me from watching that last segment that Stars and Stripes does have the ability to sail higher than Kookaburra. Now, Stars and Stripes was going to tack it parallel. And this is a good situation when you're faster than the other boat, because you discourage him from coming back and give you a much larger race to be able to roll over him.
Okay, high drama out here on Gage Roads on this, the first leg of the third race of the America's Cup final. Back to you, Mike. Oh, hang on, they're coming together again. Not back to you at all. Just have a look at this. This is on starboard. Kookaburra 3 has right of way.
And she's reaching down hard. Okay, Dennis has elected to go under the stern. That means he's just blown away 30 or 40 feet. And we're seeing a slam dunk. Nice tactics. It's a matter of whether Kookaburra had enough speed on to be able to do two small tacks like that and be able to hold Dennis. Dennis was able to have lots of speed, and he pulled down quite violently. This will be a real test.
I would say the blue boat elected to do that because he figures that Kookaburra's been making gains from the right-hand side of the course, and he's decided to try and have a little bit of the right-hand side of the course himself. He has to sacrifice his psychological lead to do that, but if he has enough speed, then he can do it.
He didn't have quite enough speed to carry it off, and what we saw then is slowly but surely Dennis driving out underneath the leeward bow of Ian's boat, and as a result Ian had to tack away. He's done one tack and then he's come back again, and they're both paralleling on port tack. It would suggest that Stars and Stripes are sailing just a little bit better at this point in terms of pure boat speed, and the Australians of course are hanging on for grim life. It appears that they're sailing just a little bit higher, the American boat, more so than faster through the water.
Coming together now.
Okay.
If he elects now to slam dunk Ian, he probably will, because he probably wants to drive into the left and keep the right-hand side of the course for himself.
Correct, protect the right-hand side. Let's say we're going to see a tack. There we go. Dennis is tacking, and of course Ian will tack his boat to clear his air.
Oh boy, do we have a boat race.
This has been the best race so far. Kookaburra's in real contact with Stars and Stripes, quite close to the windward mark, and failing some big shift or something, we'll have quite a close time around this windward mark.
Well, not far to go up this first leg. It looks like Stars and Stripes, the blue boat, does have a slight advantage. We just saw them when they crossed. It would have been something like 8 seconds. What does it look like up there, Bruce Stannard, in the Swan Premium Airship?
What it looks like is a very, very close and excellent boat race. I see this big blue machine really going into top gear now and settling in as this breeze kicks in. It's got to be blowing well and truly over 15 knots, 15, 16, 17 knots right now. And Stars and Stripes seems to be coming into her own. But what a great fight the Cooker 3 guys are putting up for Dennis Conner. Now Conner tacks, comes around onto starboard tack. Interesting now to see what response the Cookers have to that. Dennis Conner is in control of this race at this moment, but it's very, very tight. Looking up the course, I can see the orange Dayglow buoy that is the first windward mark, and it's about another, I'd say another 10, 12 minutes away yet. So Ian Murray has to, and as I speak, goes up through the eyes of the wind and tacks onto port tack. Now, from my vantage point, 500 feet above the racing yacht, it does look as if Conner has lengthened out his lead here slightly. And I expect him to cross Kookaburra 3 quite comfortably.
What we've also experienced here is about a 10-degree wind shift to the right as the breeze is freshened from 14 knots to 16 knots. So that's why Dennis will want to be protecting the right-hand side of the course, and that will give him a slight selection in terms of whether he wants to continue protecting. But I would think that as this breeze freshens, this trend may continue, and the San Diego boat will be wanting to, every time it come across on this situation, she'll be tacking on the bow of Kookaburra and forcing in back to the left side of the course. Let's watch and see.
They're not far apart as these boats cross, and up this end of the course in a sea breeze, usually the wind is favoured to the right because Rottnest Island bends the wind around, and we've found that racing this summer, boats that have been on the right up here have come off better than the ones on the left. So Dennis is really going to try and bounce the Kookaburras back to the left and keep both the right-hand side for the wind shift and the right-hand side for the fact that he has starboard tack and has right of way over Kookaburra.
It was interesting, Ben, that when these two boats came together, this last situation, there was no difference in distance separating them compared to the previous encounter. So that would suggest that the boats are sailing pretty darn similar in overall boat speed.
Boy, this is close. This is still very, very close indeed.
Kookaburra is sailing very well in these conditions. So here we go. We have a man on the bow. They've caught just a little bit, it appears. And we have a very, very competitive boat with Kookaburra 3 and a very even matched group of boats here, Bruce.
Kookaburra 3 has tacked 15 times, Stars and Stripes 12 times, and Kookaburra 3 is going up beyond the ley line a bit. She's going to try and reach down to get a bit of extra speed, John.
Well, she needs to do that. If she had tacked right in the wake, right on the stern of Stars and Stripes, she would have got a tremendous amount of backwash off Stars and Stripes sails. So she's had to go a little bit further, put in an extra bit of distance, maybe 1.5 boat lengths. You can see her up on the left-hand side of the screen, so that she doesn't get that bad influence. And that's just the penalty, unfortunately, you pay when you're behind another boat. You've got to make sure that not only are your sails working in maximum wind velocity and not getting all the turbulence, but you don't sail too far away from the mark. So in this situation, we'll probably see a difference in timing of maybe 8 to 14 seconds. Whereas in reality, when they crossed the stern, it was much closer. As Benny said, Kookaburra 3 is close enough to Stars and Stripes to be a major problem to the American boat on this first square run of this course. And it's going to be very, very interesting racing.
I felt that Kookaburra has done now 16 tacks to Dennis's 12, and a tack really does cost you between 40 and 70 feet, depending on the wind conditions, and Kookaburra sailed very fast up this first beat of this race.
Well, that's good news for Australia as the blue boat goes around. And up comes Cooker. John Bertrand picked it about 14, 15 seconds, and that's going to be very close to it.
interesting that that Stars and Stripes elected to do a starboard pole when they were so close to Kookaburra. Kookaburra is doing a port set. Now, every time you turn the boat through such a violent motion, you tend to burn off speed. So Ian has elected to do the port set purely from the tactical advantage of being inside. Or the other alternative is that maybe Dennis didn't show his hand very early, and as a result lulled Ian Murray into a false sense of security that indeed the front boat was going to do a jibe set. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
That would have cost them about half a boat length, the jibe set, but does give them the inside running. Now, if they can capitalise on that with a little bit of boat speed, it gives them a big advantage over them.
That's correct, yes. They're now getting the Genoa off the foredeck. It was in the water before. It tends to slow the boat down a little bit, and it's going to be a great test for square running ability here. And if indeed Kookaburra is making distance on Stars and Stripes, then we will see Stars and Stripes come across very quickly.
Okay, well, we heard from Professor Rolf Bertrand. Why don't we go to his cousin, John Bertrand of A2 fame, and ask him all about jibing.
Now we're going to do a jibe. The reasons for jibing? Mainly the boat has to go from one direction to another because of the tactics and so on. In that situation, the sails need to go from one side of the boat to another. Notice that the pole will be coming down, the spinnaker pole will be coming down, the mainsail will be coming across. Stand by to jibe. Okay, here we go. Trip.
The spinnaker pole falls away from one clew. It's engaged by the bowman. Coffee grinder's reeling the pole back, coming up to the new clew, the new corner of the sail as the mainsail falls across to the new side. And that is a jibe.
Thanks, Gibbo. Welcome back live on Gauge Roads. And there you see in the left of screen, America's Cup boy, with the cutout of the America's Cup on the side nearest to Stars and Stripes as it comes down to make its final rounding before it beats up into the wind to the finish line.
This boat is about 100 metres from the mark. The camera angle is deceiving. And the Genoa, they've made the selection on their Genoa. They've hoisted it inside their spinnaker, in preparing the rounding of the final mark, and one beat to windward to the finishing line. There we are, down to near the 7th mark. Stars and Stripes leading by an estimated 1 minute and 44 seconds at this point. We'll get a more accurate fix when the two boats go around this bottom mark.
On board, Stars and Stripes, and there's the shot of Fairway, or Bell Buoy as we used to know it. That's the mark that all the ships have to come around when they enter Gauge Roads coming into the port of Fremantle. But one thinks that from now on it will be known as it is today, the America's Cup boy. Still very quiet, subdued, relaxed on board the blue boat. Coming up to the mark, the Genoa's ready. Holding that spinnaker, holding it this time, a lot longer than they have on previous days. And as they drop the chute and go round the mark, we'll just have a little listen to what's taking place on board Stars and Stripes.
The conditions have freshened just a little bit since the last beat to windward, and there's a good chance that Ian Murray would have selected a slightly flatter, more refined Genoa to go up this last beat to windward to the finish. Sails coming around down below, and Kookaburra 3.
Round it comes now. Unofficial time, 1:40. Unofficial time, 1:40 to Stars and Stripes.
Well, because these programs are so long, 3 years of development and so on, there's certainly, the skipper has to show a certain amount, well, quite obviously a lot of team leadership and the ability to work with people and allow a large group of people out on the boat. And we're talking about one element, which is out on the water here, and there's basically various elements throughout the whole America's Cup campaign. But with one of these elements, he has to have that ability to draw 11 men together on the 11th hour and allow them to peak at the same time. And certainly, you know, there's various other elements. There's the administration and the fundraising and the high technology. All those elements have to be pulled together. And the skipper is an important part of that to help bridge those gaps so that all the feedback coming off the water back into all the research and development programs is as accurate as possible.
Do you think perhaps in that regard that Ian Murray's dad said yesterday on this program that he was a little too young, that there was too much expected of him?
Well, you know, it's a great test and a great character-building program. Of course, you ask Kevin Paris, a $28 million character-building program from his point of view. But, you know, the skipper is, I guess, in a cricket team, the only batsman in the whole team, and the rest of them have to support him. And if he falls by the wayside, then it's really tough on the whole program. So there is a lot of responsibility, and that's just part of the game that we have here.
Okay, well, there we are. Aboard Stars and Stripes is the blue boat. The San Diego Yacht Club representative powers towards the finishing line. This is to make it 3-0 in the best-of-7 series.
What a huge number of spectator craft out here, Bruce. It's absolutely phenomenal. I would never have ever dreamt that the support would be so huge off the coast of Western Australia.
Well, we never doubted it, John. Driving through these rising seas. The breeze that was not supposed to be here today. It was supposed to drop off and even go back to a shore breeze at the east, but it didn't. It stayed in at 18 to 19 knots. And up comes Stars and Stripes now to cross the line. Listen to the Americans on board. Sunbird go mad. The gun goes. Stars and Stripes 3. Kookaburra 3-0.
The Kookaburra's really harassing Stars and Stripes now, chasing her and taking at her all the time.
31 seconds to go, 48, 47, they're still a little early. So what we're having here is Dennis is getting close to the leeward end of the line here, and he's running out of distance. What we will see is Kookaburra will be tacking. She's been pushing like an old mongrel dog at the men from San Diego. They will not be able to stay there. They'll tack over, in my opinion, probably start on port tack. And Dennis will be starting on starboard tack, and he'll be gunning at that leeward end. 20 seconds to go. Not a lot of distance left for either boat. 14 seconds. Kookaburra will need to tack. 9 seconds. 7.
Dennis is heading in the mark. He may be too early.
Okay, they're both going for it. 2 seconds.
No, he's right on it.
Get up there, Cooker.
So Dennis kind of won the start. Very close. Can't stop the start. When you go to the jungle, one goes up, it's better than the other.
Kookaburra tacks over to clearer air. She'll be gunning out on port tack. Dennis will be getting his speed up before he tacks to cover. He'll still be winding up. 20 tons is still winding up in speed. He's probably only 7.5 knots now. He'll want to get to 8.5 knots before he flips over.
The official start margin, Stars and Stripes by 5 seconds, but there would have been more lost time when they had to go over on the port tack, John.
Well, no, it's actually works the opposite, Bruce. What happens is that when Stars and Stripes was on starboard tack, she was able to accelerate more. When you tack at a lower speed, you actually lose more distance. So, in fact, the 5 seconds will elongate to probably 10 seconds when they both get settled down.
Okay, tacking Jules.
Kookaburra taking back.
As we go up into the Swan Premium Airship, Bruce Stannard.
Thanks, Bruce. Well, from my perspective, 500 feet above the racing yacht, it does look to be a very close contest, but I believe Stars and Stripes is in the lead right now. She's crossing Kookaburra 3 fairly comfortably on port tack here. And actually, she's going about. She's tacking right in front of Kooka 3, so that she forces Kooka 3 to tack away, that he's disturbed air streaming off her sails, guaranteeing that Kooka 3 will not come on like that. She has to tack, now she's on port tack. The Americans are in front at this point. So just a few minutes after the start, it's clear to me that the American boat, this was 8 minutes after the start, in fact, the Americans are clinging to a narrow lead. Very decisive start indeed, in which Connor was able to keep his boat moving. Kooka 3 had to tack when she was down in speed. Dennis kept his boat moving and then came around and covered Kooka nicely. Kooka came back, didn't quite have the pace on, and now it looks as if the blue boat is going away. Now, this breeze is making in, and I can see up the America's Cup course, it looks to be about 16 knots right now. There's plenty of white caps on the waves. So very early days yet, but not the greatest of starts for young Peter Gilmore. He's now handed over the helm to Ian Murray. The cookers are settling the boat down and steaming up the middle of the course. Dennis Connor in Stars and Stripes is going off to the left-hand side of the course, followed by this enormous Spectator Armada, a great white fleet of boats stretching all the way back to Fremantle. Must be at least 1,000 boats out here of all shapes and sizes for what will be a glorious day sailing. Now Dennis Connor tacks across, he's on port tack, and the cookers have come across to starboard. This will be a very critical crossing. If the cookers can get in front here, then they're back in the boat race. It's very difficult to say yet. They've got quite a way to go before they do cross. I'll take a punt and say that Stars and Stripes will cross in front of Cooker 3. Either that or she'll tack right underneath the bows. They've got about another 3 minutes to go before, another 2.5 minutes to quickly go before they actually get to that position. They're on a collision course, seemingly, right now, as they come in. The American crew hunkered down in the inside the boat. Some of them are sitting on the windward rail, trying to sit the boat down. I can't see what the crew of Cooker 3 are doing because they're obscured by the jib. They're coming in now. Now, Cooker 3 is in the right of way. She's on starboard tack. But Dennis Connor's hanging on port tack. He will not be able to cross Cooker 3. He's not going to be able to cross her, I don't think. He's hanging on. A very brave move by Dennis Connor. If he can cross here, he's clearly in front. He's going to do it. Stars and Stripes is in the lead right now. A very, very bold move by Dennis Connor with no rights at all on port tack. He's crossed in front of Cooker 3. Well,
John Bertrand, as they come around the top mark, I think we won't be seeing, as we did in the last race, a jive set by Kookaburra 3.
No.
That's if, of course, Dennis Connor goes for a veer-away.
They'll do exactly the mirror image of the enemy at this point, Bruce. There's no way that they go off by themselves, because their only way of attacking with a vengeance is to get their sails, and their wind shadow in particular, onto the sails of Stars and Stripes. So they'll be doing exactly the same and follow them in every manoeuvre. They're coming up to the weather mark. They're about 30 seconds. Dennis Connor and Stars and Stripes is about 30 seconds away from the mark now. You can see that Ian is sailing a little bit higher. He's got his boat about one beam width higher than Stars and Stripes. That's a good position so that he doesn't fall in and get the disturbed bent air off the sails of Stars and Stripes. Here we go, coming around the first mark.
And this is the scene in the San Diego Yacht Club, live from San Diego. Pretty happy bunch as Stars and Stripes goes round that top mark.
It's going to be a starboard pole. The spinnaker pole is up on the right-hand side. Nice. No, not a clean set. Not bad, though. So here we go. Kookaburra 3. Ian Murray. And 10 other guys on that boat, desperately wanting to close this gap. It'll be a starboard pole as well. There's the spinnaker pole up on the right-hand side. Don McCracken, the bowman, feeding the spinnaker out. He'll be ready to pull the jib down when the spinnaker's about 2/3 the way up. Beautiful set by the Kookaburras, by the Australians.
Now they've got to get after Dennis and try and lean their wind shadow all over his boat, and thereby slow him down. The crew have got to, the skipper has to ignore the crew fussing on the foredeck and just aim his spinnaker up and over and lean it on Stars and Stripes if he possibly can.
Official margin, 26 seconds. 26 seconds to Stars and Stripes.
Gary, you know that when you're hot and you're racing every day or in a series and you're winning, you can count the mistakes you make and you know you made them. And when you're not hot, you make thousands of mistakes and you don't even know you made them. So like today, I've been watching this race very carefully, and that's really the only major mistake they've made other than at the Stars.
Okay, well, as they head out to the wing mark, let's show you just exactly what we mean by that as they go to the wing mark, reaching out there. Here's our course. They've gone up the first leg. That was when the margin was 26 seconds around that mark. Square running down the bottom, that was 22 seconds to Stars and Stripes. They've gone around the third mark, 42 seconds to Stars and Stripes. Now they're out to the wing mark on the power reach, then another reach down to the leeward mark, into the wind again. Downwind for the last time. That's the 7th leg around the America's Cup buoy and up into the wind to the finish line. Well, there we must go back to the studio to Mike Gibson.
Thanks, Bruce. Yes, as they approach that bottom mark, you can see Dennis Conner and that familiar canoe-like bow sidling through the water. We have to leave the America's Cup course for our Sydney and Melbourne viewers. We take you to your news. We'll keep you up to date with the racing during the news. Then Mike Willisey, and we'll be back here straight afterwards in an hour from now. See you then. And back we go out there on Gage Roads as they get ready to round the mark there for Mark 5. It is and approach the 6th leg here in the 4th race for the America's Cup.
Stars and Stripes, well, do you give it an aggressive point or a conservative point, Gary?
Right in the middle. About 3 boat lengths to go. The spinnaker came down. They had the jib up plenty early, so they might have thrown away a couple seconds. Now let's watch Kookaburra as she comes around. Connor took the mark a little bit wide there. Let's watch the Aussie team as they come around. Will they hold the spinnaker to the last possible instant? And if they do, they might be able to gain back 2 or 3 seconds when they had that spinnaker sheet problem at around the 4th mark. Here they come.
That takedown from Dennis was a little bit untidy too, Gary. I thought they were going to drop it in the water and it was going to go under the boat.
Well, just maybe about a length later they held on. So they're a little bit more aggressive, but not quite as much. They could have gone a little further.
They need a takedown. We'll see how close they go to the nail.
Unofficially 47 seconds, so they have held Stars and Stripes on the second reaching leg. It was 49 seconds at the wing mark, unofficially 47, and it's in fact officially 48 seconds, so they picked up just 1 second on that second reach.
And considering the problem they had with the spinnaker after the jibe was made at the 4th mark, that's pretty good. So they found a little bit of speed there.
Thanks very much, Mike. Thanks, Janine. The closing moments in this chapter as Stars and Stripes head for the line. Here's Sail Vision. That's where they are on the course. Sail Vision shows us that Stars and Stripes has laid the finish. She's laid the line. She's heading for the America's Cup with a lead of 1:39. The breeze has dropped down to 16 knots. Stars and Stripes sailing into history.
Certainly one must congratulate the excellent campaign that Dennis and these very dedicated group of people put together. It's something that's really amazed so many people here in Newport.
In Newport?
Wrong city, wrong time. Fremantle, Western Australia. And when he first came in October, November...
San Diego, they're going wild.
He didn't show any of the speed that he's showing now. The results of the last couple of months have been incredible in terms of turning this boat around to become a dominating force of what we've seen over the last 4 races. And that really has been the difference. He came to Fremantle with a boat that was just okay, but the changes, the modifications, and all the improvements have brought together a boat that's setting up to win this regatta 4-0. Phenomenal effort, and we must congratulate every person that's been involved with this Stars and Stripes syndicate. Very, very impressive.
And I hope, John, that Australia, to a man and a woman and child, can say good on you to Dennis Conner. That's a mighty effort.
Coming up to the finishing line.
And Sunbird is going to erupt.
That's the starboard end of the finishing line, right on the bow. Dennis is flipping across, not unlike 1983. Stars and Stripes coming up to nudge across the finishing line and to win the America's Cup.
Dennis Conner has done it. On board, they go wild. They have every right to be jubilant. On Sunbird, they go bananas. In San Diego, they're ecstatic. They've got the cup. Dennis Conner, Stars and Stripes, 87, winning the America's Cup 4-0 against Kookaburra. Mighty effort by Dennis Conner. And happy they are.
We'll have to put our armour suits on here. I mean, if we speak Australian on board this boat, I think we'll be slapped on our back so hard it'll knock our chest bones out the front of our body. There's a whole lot of happy Americans here today, and I reckon Dennis Conner now could probably walk from the boat to the shore now without any trouble.
Let's not forget the guy guys on brave Kookaburra 3 still beating up to the line. She's done you proud, Australia.
They've done a good job, the Kookaburras, but just wasn't good enough against their super boat and their super sailor.
There's Kookaburra coming up. The proud yacht representing Australia. And by golly, have they put in a fantastic effort this summer.
80 hours a week for 2.5 years.
$28 million, one boat length from the finishing line.
Let's give the Cooker a cheer as she crosses the finish line.
And here she goes, nudging up. Getting close. Kookaburra 3, led by Kevin Parry, skippered by Ian Murray. Peter Gilmore, starting helmsman. Derek Clark, tactician.
Now.
And I suspect, Bruce, they will return.
They'll be back. Well done, Cooker. Congratulations. The sirens go. A brave effort. You went down, but you did us proud. And even the Americans on board are giving a great cheer to the Kookaburras. Don't be despondent, fellas. You gave it your best shot. A minute 59, the official margin. A minute 59 to Stars and Stripes. There are the Deltas.